Over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. The second set of documents we are releasing reveals that members of the deep state, very, very famous group of people, in many cases, in our intelligence agency work to actively suppress and downplay information about the extent of China's sinister election meddling.
That was President Trump in his primetime address last week, accusing U.S. intelligence agencies of conspiring to hide China's alleged interference in the 2020 election that Trump lost. Let's bring in MS Now senior national security reporter David Rohde, who's out this morning with a new piece about how Trump's claim now has put one of his most trusted aides, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, in an awkward position because, David, in Trump's first term, John Ratcliffe had a different post.
Correct. So the president, he's giving this speech, and John Ratcliffe is one of the people sitting right in front of him. And he went on to say that I didn't get briefed on any of this information in 2020. Who was one of the people deciding what was briefed to the president? John Ratcliffe, the then director of national intelligence. So was John Ratcliffe part of the deep state plot, or was he so bad at his job that he didn't know that the president was being tricked? And the reality is the claims are false. There was no deep state plot, and there was no, Chinese effort. I want people may be confused, but interfering in the election in intelligence terms means changing votes, changing the outcome somehow. That's not what China tried to do. China tried to influence the election. John Ratcliffe did say he thought that the Chinese public effort putting out propaganda, these include like government statements, but also stuff online, was larger than other intelligence officials thought. But I just want to go back that nothing in that speech and nothing in those documents showed that there was any change in votes to change the outcome of the 2020 election. So I did this story about Ratcliffe, and there are former CIA officials who are frustrated that he just sat there through this whole speech, essentially where Trump is accusing the CIA and other intelligence agencies of being part of a deep state plot, and he's leading these agencies. And I heard some people defend Ratcliffe also that he cares about the CIA workforce. He's basically better than other cabinet members who disdain their workforces, that Ratcliffe at least values the importance of intelligence.
So maybe the 2020 John Ratcliffe was part of the deep state, but the 2026 John Ratcliffe was able to escape its clutches. But let's go back to the broader point, because we were talking about this earlier today, too. I mean, the whole speech last week, it was nonsense. There was no new evidence shown here. And some of the documents they released actually underscored the idea that Russia in 2016 tried to play an active role. In that case, of course, helping Trump. But it does seem to be setting up some sort of pretext for this November casting doubt.
And that's the real concern. And then the other thing I learned was that there was division in the White House about the speech. So there was a push, according to one senior administration official, to redact some of the information in these documents, reveal those things. And Ratcliffe pushed back and said, hey. And people at the CIA were very upset, like, do not redact this information. We cross that stuff out because we don't want sources and methods of intelligence gathering made public. Essentially, you can get people killed. And it was John Solomon and Bill Pulte who were pushing this. All senior White House officials, I was told, pushed back and agreed with Ratcliffe. And that essentially, and so no redactions were made in the documents. And you sort of have a dynamic where you have a group in the White House who's trying to say we were thoughtful, we were careful, at least in terms of revealing information that could get people killed. And then it was Solomon and Pulte who were making this push to redact some information. Solomon is denying that flat out. Stephen Chung, a White House spokesperson, denied that as well. Pulte's spokesperson didn't reply, but there were some divisions before the speech.
And, Caddy, it is a moment, though, where Ratcliffe, it has been deemed by some observers as one of the few adults still around this president this time around in a administration that is deliberately stocked with yes men, people who are simply going to be true believers and carry out his orders, that he at least at times has attempted to be something of a moderating force, though put in an awkward position in the last few days.
Yeah, and some of the argument for Ratcliffe is a little bit like the argument for Todd Blanche. Imagine who it could be if it wasn't John Ratcliffe. So let's address another issue, David, because as the U.S. war with Iran is playing out. The Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen say that they've carried out missile and drone attacks on 2 Saudi oil tankers in the Red Sea. These are the first claimed attacks since the Yemeni group announced a blockade on Saudi Arabia. Saudi officials confirmed one strike, saying this tanker caught fire, in fact, but stopped short of naming who was responsible and didn't comment on the second ship. The Houthis say that both vessels violated the blockade, and they say they are also forced several other ships to turn around, but those claims haven't been independently verified. Analysts say the attacks could further disrupt global oil supplies while increasing the risk of a wider regional conflict. All of this comes as the United States and Saudi Arabia yesterday formally signed a nuclear agreement that could potentially provide the kingdom with uranium enrichment capability for its civilian nuclear program. Trump administration officials were quick to defend the deal, with Energy Secretary Chris Wright saying these agreements uphold the highest standards of nuclear safety and non-proliferation, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio adding that the U.S. is not going to reach any agreement with any country in the world that leads to the risk of proliferation. Others are more skeptical, some experts warning it could open the door to possible weaponization, something Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has suggested he could pursue if Iran obtained its own nuclear weapons. So the deal is expected to last 30 years. It'll involve U.S. firms in developing the program. It's going to be submitted for review to Congress, where it will likely be met with some opposition, but would require a veto-proof majority to override it. But, Gene, 2 questions. What is the U.S. getting in return? Because this has been mooted for a long time, that we would help the Saudis with their civilian uranium enrichment, and in return they would normalize relations with Israel. That's what the Biden administration was trying to work on. That doesn't seem to have happened, so I don't know what we're getting. And the second is, how do we make sure that if the Saudis are in control of their own enrichment, it doesn't lead to some kind of nuclear proliferation? Because, as they've said, if Iran gets a bomb, we want one too.
Well, exactly. And remember, how did the Iranian nuclear program start in the first place? It was Atoms for Peace. It was the U.S. helping Iran under the Shah establish a nuclear program, which then evolved and under the Islamic government became more covert. But by then it was already really big, and they had the basics for doing uranium enrichment, and here we are. And again, it seems like the last thing we need is more uranium enrichment in the Persian Gulf, yet that's what we have signed up to encourage. So, David Rohde, how does this make sense? Make this make sense for me, and explain what we do get in return, if anything.
So it doesn't make any sense. There is an alternative. This is a badly structured deal that could lead Saudi Arabia to enrich uranium and create a nuclear bomb. Right next door to Saudi Arabia is a separate it's a civilian nuclear program in the United Arab Emirates. It was a deal negotiated by the Biden administration, and the UAE has no way to enrich uranium. It's very simple. They get enriched uranium is delivered to their nuclear power plants from other countries. From Russia, some possibly could come. I'm not sure if some comes from the United States or not, but that's a simple way to do this, where there is no need for the UAE to have any way to enrich uranium, which if it could lead to a bomb. So why would the Trump administration agree that Saudi Arabia, Prince Buzzsaw, as he's called, and that's a reference to the fact that MBS, ordered the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, who was dismembered. And given Saudi Arabia's long record of human rights abuses, and also they haven't been the closest ally in this war, why make this deal? Why does Saudi Arabia get this special treatment? And one suggestion is that it has to do, and maybe this isn't fair, but that the Saudi Public Investment Fund invested $2 billion in the president's son-in-law's firm. That occurred soon after Jared Kushner left the first Trump administration. And there are American companies who get business from this deal. But it's, again, this sort of, frankly, just bad, incompetent policy. So maybe there's a short-term gain from some American companies, but you're now creating a situation where Saudi Arabia gets to enrich uranium that could lead it to a nuclear bomb. And this is going to upset, lastly, Israelis. They don't want to see Saudi Arabia having this ability.
Yeah, you're exactly right on that. And they'll certainly be greeted with some skepticism on the Hill, but unclear if there'll be enough to actually overturn this deal.